Yeah.
There we go. And now we're in. Hey, we don't have anybody watching because I still have to tweet out that we're live because we're a half hour late because Andy didn't have internet and then he finally did and then nothing would work on OBS. But we're here. And in just a second, I'll have the questions coming up. Actually, yeah, we'll start with our Discord questions because you guys have had a chance to see them. Jay, you were saying you were actually psyched to answer some of those.
Oh yeah.
I
They
mean, all of them are from Superfan Flip because this is what I'm actually interested in answering too. Was the first question we got is Flip asked, as a nerd who works with at-risk youth, the intersection between tabletop gaming and therapeutic growth is fascinating to me. What do you GMs know about this? Do you have any recommendations as how I could better integrate tabletop gaming into my own work with you?
Okay, so yeah, you got the kids that may want to focus on the rules and really do that. You also may have the kids who need the social interaction, the kids who need someone to listen to and interact with, as far as having an adult there who can really speak to them on their level. That in and of itself goes leaps and bounds beyond just whatever game you're playing.
Yeah, yeah. This
Uh,
is, I mean, you're talking about at-risk use, so it's slightly different therapy. This is stuff I've been looking into a lot for the last few years because I have a special needs daughter, and there's a lot of work people are putting into looking into basically doing therapy for autism and social adjustment through RPGs. In fact, I'm still waiting on it because sadly the quarantine pushed it late. Waiting on a game called Critical Core that's actually made by people in that field. So I'm really interested in that, and I hope I'll know a lot more at that point. But there, as Andy was saying, there's a ton of aspects to this that you can look at. There's essentially you got the old therapy standby of like security puppets and stuff. An RPG is that on steroids.
Mhm.
You also have the ability to teach causality. You have the ability for people to experiment with potentially risky behavior while you can still give them consequences because it's within the game. They can learn what the consequences are without the actual dangers of those consequences, which is very useful for helping people. You can use that in a way to show people the outcomes of problematic behavior they have without them having to actually have it and it affect other people in the real world. There's a lot of different avenues RPG and tabletop gaming.
On my end, regarding to this, that question actually hits a bit deep. I started D&D way back in high school, and I was your typical like very nerdy, very quiet, very like substandard of like in the corner kind of kid, talk whenever spoken to only. Obviously, it's just upbringing that kind of brings that. But where it started for me was character creation. That's where because you can't play a super um like super intellectual character if you're not very intellectual, right? So people tend to kind of like stick with what they know. One of the tricks that I tend to used to do when I would create a character, or I'll tell my new players how to create a character, is take one aspect of yourself and just turn it up to 100. Like, I have a slight outgoing kind of personality whenever I'm around friends sometimes. So I just bring up that charisma all the way up. I seduce the shit out of everything and make my DM lose his shit. Or I I prefer strategy games. I love to be the guy who controls the field. I bring that all the way up to 100. Like
Yeah.
it's it's really and sometimes like throughout my life, I tend to like if I get put in a situation, obviously problem solving as a group with other players, with other people and the DM as well. It brings out kind of a thing like when I'm at work or I'm dealing with social issues or anything like that. I'm able to go, what would character 3.45 do? He would roll to seduce. or actually sit down and think about how to follow through with it. The fact that D&D, tabletop games in general, Savage Worlds, role playing,
Yeah.
it helps build aspects of your life that you feel like maybe lacking. And obviously, back to what Bobby said, it's just you don't get the consequences of what you deal with in real life, and having to have a outlet or a thing to build upon, because people tend to care for other things rather than themselves. They tend to care for other people. They tend for their gaming character or whatever as it is.
I will want to say one other note on that before I forget. A big one, especially as we're moving into this new era, I like to think of a big reason why this channel is pro LGBT. Everything on top of it, just it's the right thing to do. Is more and more we have fans, we have coworkers, at least in my field and stuff I'm doing, that have used RPGs to explore gender identity. I think it's probably the safest place to explore their identity. It's a way for people who aren't sure to dip in a, again, much less consequence free environment, but also in an environment, unless you're dealing with super assholes at the table, more people are going to be like, oh, it's just playing a female character. No one will even think about it, in case they're worried about expressing how they feel, and they can still do that in an open way, interacting with other people without having to open up to a level they're not comfortable with yet. Moving on, favorite pasta. Well, we'll just clear out the flip questions. Favorite gaming moment. Mine is really easy. I brought it up the other week, so I'll just say it now. Favorite gaming moment was when Dad Bod Dave proposed to Andy's character. That's hands down my favorite moment as a GM ever.
That was awesome. I missed that game. Yeah, that is a tough one. I feel like it really depends on the game, because there are a lot of good moments that a lot of my players have. I don't want to take that away, but even my Fear Street game that's going on and has been running for like a year almost, I think, is something that there have been all of these powerful moments and like really moving moments and interactions between the PCs, and it's not streamed or anything, but I have a lot of favorite moments. I mean, I have the Dad Bod Dave scene. I have, God, so many things from our ETU game that we had. Like, there were a lot of fun scenes in there too.
Gaming moments? Is that the question?
Yeah. Favorite gaming moment. I assume applying to tabletop RPGs, but it does just.
I gotta like it when a lot of my favorite gaming moments are definitely not safe for work. I gotta. It always devolves, into kind of madness and everything like that. But I guess my favorite gaming moment would be the one where we had a young DM who essentially was new and went through the books, did things like toe to toe, and the entirety of our session it was a West Marches, and we were trying to break him. Poor boy, but we were really trying to break him. I mean, he was an adult, so but
yeah,
it's just fun to see the DM just lose their mind. And I guess it was the one time where he was like, I didn't expect you to seduce this one person. You're not a bard. I'm like, I know.
You don't gotta be a bard to be sexy.
Yeah, and I actually have to call out one of my favorite gaming moments would have to be, we had a paladin in our party, and we just finished a battle, and we just chaos was still ensuing. People were going ham on each other, and the paladin himself stepped up, went to the top of the hill. He was like, hey, do you have that light cantrip? I need you to cast it on my sword. And he was like, everyone was like, why? He was like, just cast it. And he was like, I want to do the Tron pose, or the pose where Luke Skywalker's holding up the lightsaber. And he made the most it was he screamed, like role played the scream. He was like, ah, and shit like that. And we like lost our minds. He was like, and he gave the most moving speech I've ever heard. He was like, um, my God does not expect for human lives or any lives to be lost during this. And the fact that you've and went through this whole entire spiel, and the DM like was like, you're not rolling for that. They're just going to agree with you because it's just, and
You
he
did the
told
work.
this, yeah, and there was this like, I guess like Oathbreaker Paladin or something like that at the midst of everything, and he was telling the Oathbreaker like, turn your ways. There's always a time for redemption. There's always a time to turn your way. Like no matter how bad it gets, no matter how far you've gone, there's always one another chance, and two for you to stop doing what you're doing. And sometimes like sitting down and playing these games and everything like that, you see an aspect of people's lives where like generally people aren't evil, right?
Hmm.
Like they're good at heart. They want to do the best things. They want to do a good thing. They're generally for themselves, but if you build enough like of a relationship with, say, you're a DM or you're a player with everybody, at the end of the day, it's just it works.
First one from Facebook is from Nick Levy. How have you been playing online? I short question, but I think it's more given the quarantine and everything. And well, I mean, all my playing's online, so this Zoom, Fantasy Grounds for me, and
Um,
Andy's getting ready to launch his show. So
And I usually run my games on Roll20. Like it's a great resource. You can post your game, you can look for games looking for players that fit your time schedule. Like it is very user friendly and intuitive. Now I do, and it's got a huge breadth of systems with sheets that let you roll right from them.
yeah.
Some of them are a bit buggy, some of them could use updating, but
Yeah, no. I was a Roll20 super fan till I had people want me to run on Fantasy Grounds, and I just got lucky enough to get Fantasy Grounds for free because of the YouTube channel. So I was like, okay, we'll do that. Now I'm just on it because all my shit's on it. I'm not diehard one or the other.
so depending on what type of game that you want to play, there's always a Discord server for it.
Oh, true.
Yeah, there's always a Discord server. Roll20 as is a good basis for maps and stuff like that. Theater of the Mind, do it on Discord. Don't want your face seen? Perfect. Want your face seen? Do it. Like it's odd. If you're streaming, obviously we do it here on Zoom. Um, but for D&D, plenty of Discord servers out there. West Marches is a big way of playing it. It feels like an MMO. It really isn't. But you'll get all sorts of people. Just don't feel personal about it.
I mean, if you're playing West Marches online, it is an MMO technically because it is
Yeah.
massively multiplayer online. Uh,
There are a set of rules that
yeah,
when I used to run West Marches, there was a set of rules that we followed. Was this isn't an MMO. It's a table. It's
yeah.
paper. It's pen and paper, flat out, and that you feel like you are the main character of this story, but you're not the main character of everybody else's story that's out there. Like if you go and slap a goblin across the face that's a level 1, he's still going to stay a level 1
Yeah.
if he's in that area. But if you're going to go up and slap a level 20 like Big Baddie, you might die. Like there's
In
no running
D&D,
away.
you'll die. Scaling in
Yeah.
D&D, yeah, you'll die. Uh, I think the big takeaway, I mean, when quarantine first started, a lot more of these questions were coming around. I don't know about you guys, but I was answering them a ton back then. But it's as much or as little online as you want. You could do as small as just everybody on voice on Discord using pen and paper and actual dice. The game still works for most games. I mean, obviously, if you're playing something like Warhammer 40K, you're not going to be able to do that. But if we're talking about D&D and tabletop role-playing games, most of them work. A lot of them are built actually to do theater of the mind first miniatures second so that the game just functions even if you don't have the minis.
I mean, you can always do Tabletop Simulator if you really want to do Warhammer.
Yeah. Oh no, for something like Warhammer, yeah, it's real hard because Games Workshop shuts down all the mods that do Warhammer.
Mhm.
And understandably, they don't want people being able to use their minis without buying a bunch of them because that's their whole business model. The next one, I will fully admit there is one question in here I stole because it is a series of questions Wild Die Podcast put out to all their listeners for an upcoming show, and I thought they'd be good questions for us. There's 4 of them. So the first is your next campaign selection a group decision? And if so, what is the process? So basically, when you're starting a new campaign, is it a group decision? And if so, what's the process for the group or for the decision, I guess?
How I do it,
Yeah.
I toss feelers. That's
Yeah.
what I do. I'll ask the questions and be like, hey, I have this thing that I want to do, but I don't know if you guys want me to run like Curse of Strahd or something like that, or Tomb of Annihilation. That's always a great one. Sometimes if the players are like, yeah, I would like to do this, I generally just say yes.
I mean, that's mine. I give them a pitch. I mean, playing online makes it a lot easier because it's not just the guys or girls that come to your table every week and you're like, hey, I got to convince you. I mean, especially with us with the channel and all, it's even a little more different. We have a stable of players. We're like, hey, we got this idea. Who wants to play? And if you can get 4 or 5 people interested, that's enough people interested to play. So you just kind of make a pitch if you have an idea and you throw the pitch out. If people get hooked, it then kind of comes back. At least for me, for campaign, is then once I get feelers out and come in, the broad pitch gets refined as a group. Where it's like, this was kind of my idea, but the specifics take input from the players and stuff. What about you, Andy?
It really depends on who I'm playing with too. Like I usually do world building. Like one, I'll either like that's what I call it, and I'll even post that in my looking for group advertisements. Like I'm looking for a group of players that want to do like a collaborative world building, and then we'll be playing this system. It's always a good way, and I love just kind of brainstorming and kicking ideas around a table. So if everyone is equally invested in it, and I do that by also like, if especially if it's a game that I'm running, if someone says something, I'll follow it up with a leading question. Like, my parents are missing. Tell me more about that. Why are they missing? Do you know why? Do you have any suspicions? And then if they say, yes, I think it's this person, well, tell me about that person. Where are they from? What are they like? And then you can branch out from there. And then you get your other player and just kind of bounce around the table, and you can find ways to weave those characters and NPCs together in unique ways based on the world that they're helping you build. And it's a lot of fun. It can be a lot of fun, but sometimes I have like a theme or idea in mind, like Transformers. I have a story in mind and I want to see how my players' input can affect that, but still try to keep a general plot going.
All right. So next down, because again, this is a list of 4 questions. We got more. What does a setting need to have for you to consider running it?
Chaos. It's got to be chaos. Like I love structure as much as possible, but I love those moments where like players are like, what just happened? Why is there like an evil rabbit bunny or some bullshit and shit like that? Like I don't know, it says it in the module, but I love it.
I think my biggest isn't so much what it has, but if it has it, it's a big red flag for me. Is if I open up a book and like the first 150 pages are just you telling me how the world is and everything I need to keep right from your version of the game, I'm not interested. Because I'm horrible about running games exactly by the book. And B, I want the openness to make the game my own. I want to find a part of the setting that you can play with. That you're not going to have somebody going, but the book said, if I wanted that, I'd just read a book.
I would say I love a good rules light narrative system where it's very generic. You could apply it to anything. You could easily rewrite and make your own characters. Some games even offer blank sheets for you to do that, and just the mechanics don't change a lot from character to character. I love things like that because automatically everyone's on an even playing ground. Then you also have the ability to make it work for whatever. Like that's what I loved about Savage Worlds from the beginning was they were like, I mean, here is one book that gives you 5 different types of games, and it is what, like 150 pages or something, you know? I'm like, yes, that's what I'm talking about. Things I don't love things that have like a lot of political is boring to me. Like our politics are messed up enough is how I feel about it. Like I
It's
don't want to
also
play.
complicated and keeping track of someone else's like political structure.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
totally get
yeah.
a headache from that. That's why I don't run masquerade games.
That's
Uh,
see, that's it, and that's my least favorite thing about it. And one of my favorite systems is World of Darkness, but I drop all of the lore, and I'm like, no, werewolves exist because of this, vampires exist because of this, different clans. It's really just traits that they have, you know, like.
yeah. Now, speaking of lore, that actually goes into their third question, which I think is perfect for this. How do you make sure your players know the necessary lore to create characters?
Session 0.
Yeah, well, session 0, I for me it's have them make up the lore.
Yeah.
Like if your game has a book worth of lore that players have to read before they can make a character, you're wanting to drop characters into your book, not have a game, at least as far as I'm concerned. Like, have rough outlines. You don't need super dense lore because, first of all, is it going to come up in game? If it doesn't come up in game, it doesn't matter. And the
Yeah.
stuff that's going to come up in game is the stuff that matters to the players. So let the players make it up. Let them decide what factions are important and stuff. Also, if they make it up, they're going to remember it and they're going to remind you.
I mean, like, characters creating it and all that stuff, as long as, like, it has a play in the game,
Yeah.
most definitely.
That's why I think
Like,
doing it in a session 0 is best too, because a player just coming like, here's all the lore, man. First of all, you bring me a book. If you can't convey it back and forth in a sentence, there's too much here. Second of all, I'm then gonna have to skim it all for what are you trying to get out of this?
yeah. God, just world building in general is just, one, it's a lot of work, right? Two, you can't be soloing this by yourself.
Yeah.
It's really all about like, hey, like, what are you interested in? Because I'm here for you, right? I'm creating this world, and all I do is just set the rules around it, and then you just play in it. It's, I don't want to know about the super secret vampire ninja clan from like down under if you're not going to kill the main boss. Like, there's no point.
Yeah. No, definitely. Actually, coming to think about one of the interesting ones, and granted, there are writers that are good enough that they can all write the one thing, but let's be honest, most of us GMs aren't professional writers. If you're the only one writing all the lore and all the perspectives of the world, it means the entire world just has one perspective, which immediately flattens it.
As far as lore goes, I always like if it's a game that you're running, I generally put in your advertisement, however you're going about trying to get your players, your setting, obviously, if you have one in mind, and then be like, here's the basic info that you need. Like, don't come with pages. You're gonna be playing characters about this age bracket. This is the world that you're in. Now you tell me about your character. And like, again, then that brings you right. And I like to work with people long before the game starts, so I can create NPCs and come up with interesting things about them. So there's a touch of personal to it for everyone.
Final one on the wild die questions before we get back to submitted ones is, do you start planning a new campaign before your current one is over?
No. No.
Mine would be like, define planning. Like, do I come up with ideas for new games? Yeah, it's not like I'm sitting there trying to. I'll have game ideas pop into my head, and if it's a really good pitch, I'll jot it down and save it. But like deep planning, like most of us have said, like that's what session 0 and stuff's for.
Yeah. Like, sorry, it's just like, say you did have like the time to do so, right? Somehow. Already, like, say you meet twice a month or maybe once a month sometimes, but in a stream it's like you have to do it once a week. There isn't a lot of time for you to be like, all right, I got Neogate New York, but at the exact same time, let me do the Savage Star Wars / like, you know, Transformers all at once. Like, I'm sorry, Bobby, but what you fucking do by like juggling all these fucking different games and figuring out what the fuck you do on the next part, good shit. But like, holy crap, like right now doing
I'm
just
insane.
Neogate, yeah,
I'm insane.
Like doing fucking Neogate New York already, it's like I literally sit down and like I finish the session and I'm like, God, what the fuck are they gonna do next? Like,
I mean, not in a bashing way, but I will give you one secret to that. I don't run D&D.
yeah,
D&D just has a lot more prep than the other systems I do. So
yeah.
There is the slight thing when it comes to these like shows and stuff. Like, Andy, you're going to be likely running a second show in a few months and stuff. But those are, first of all, we're doing as shows where people who have at least a small career at this, and even in personal games and stuff. But I do see some of my games where they can run on autopilot from here on out. Like, my players are making their own problems and I'm just fully reactionary. But that's also because I am an improv GM. I do very low prep to begin with. So there does become a point like the ETU game, and let's be honest, Star Wars is very close to that, where it just goes, I don't need to write new adventures. You guys have enough you have set up on your own, and by like trying to fix that, I know you're going to set up at least that many more adventures. So I can just let it ride.
Yeah, I toss out like aggressive amount of feelers like to my players. We have like our own little group chat that we do, and it's like, so you resurrected this guy, how are you going to move forward with your romance with this NPC? Like, the fun fact, by the way, in the Neogate New York game, and any of those who are like actually like paying attention to it, I did not expect my players to be like, I want to resurrect this random fucking NPC. And I'm like, fuck, all right, let me fucking write you a session to do that.
Again,
and,
in our unstreamed ETU game, Andy proposed to Satan to get everybody out of hell.
Yeah, like, oh my God.
Wasn't ready for that. Wasn't like, ready for you to be like, well, then marry me. Come on, just marry me. I know you want me, just marry me. I'm like, okay, I gotta go with this.
Yeah, it's really like, welcome to tabletop game RPG in general, right?
Yeah.
Everything you plan for, just get ready to throw that. Like,
that's why I don't plan.
I have to though. Like if it's an encounter, if it's like, you know, they're going in, they got to fight, they got to go, you know, guns a blazing and shit.
D&D,
like
you got to balance for the CR system. Have
fun with that.
I hate that. Oh, dude, we can go on a side tangent. Like, I can blow up the CR system with 2 words: methods and shadows. Because they obliterate the CR system. They are far more deadly than what they're listed as if ran correctly.
Oh, yeah.
I would say that running multiple games for me, I think, is a lot of fun, but you do have to dedicate individual prep time to each one. So I try to plan them around where I know I'm going to have the night off the day before, so I can go in and make tokens and write notes under all of the characters. And the whole time we've been playing, I've been running the Fear Street game. I can definitely do the Transformers game. It's I've almost got all of the art and all of that. So for me, it's just time prepping the visuals and what's really going to draw the players in is a
Yeah.
lot of fun for me.
You really got to love prep if you're going to do multiple games. I think a big one to note though in the question is it start planning the new campaign before the current one is over. So I think this is also talking about planning for the campaign that's going to replace this campaign, which on that note I'm like you don't that's a recipe for disaster because you're investing in what's coming next, which means you're going to become more likely to become more and more disinterested in the game you currently have, which means you're less likely to have a satisfactory ending, or you're going to
No.
start trying to wrap it up.
Oh yeah, like you want all of your, you want all your passion and everything like that to kind of be focused on one particular campaign. The reason why behind, like, I feel like that should be like a focus because you're doing this not just for yourself, you're doing this for your players. Like if you're getting bored of it, then at that point in time, it's sit down, talk to your players like, hey, I think it's time to wrap this up, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
not bored of the current game that I'm doing. It's a lot of work. I have a lot of very interesting players, dear lord, but like like I do have like a general idea what the next campaign would be. It'd be
Yeah.
like, all right, you played cops this time to play the villains,
Yeah. And
right?
that's also one of those for like from our position, at least for the stream games, it's different, extra different than home games and stuff because we have schedules and we have time slots and we have depending on the game sometimes we have people where we have players who want to play and maybe they're really great players but they're only available till this date and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And it is stuff like maybe if you're starting to get bored but the show was booked for at least a season lasting this long so we know it's going to go this long type situation.
Yeah.
So it gets more complex, but in general for most tables it's like don't don't start investing in a new game when you haven't finished this one. Have ideas. I have notebooks where again the like pitch, write down a sentence. Maybe if you think of some weird house rules at some point, write them down, keep them in a book, and then when it comes time for a new game, open them up and see which ones still excite you.
Go back on Wonder Bread's comment regarding the theater of the mind and is easier. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
it is easier. It is much easier. I have to agree. One of the things that I kind of like do is I will not bring out a map unless you have to fight something, or you're going to be there for a while. There, like the idea of theater of the mind is great, but you need to somewhat have like visuals to add on to it as well. Like obviously, it's I can always do like here's the like here's theater of the mind, right? But it'd be easier if I popped up this cute little tiny hobgoblin NPC for you to see, just
Yeah.
to have a general idea of what I'm doing.
Visuals are huge. I also think for tactical maps, again, it also varies greatly on the system you're running. Like 5e was written for theater of the mind, but at the end of the day, there are so many spells with very specific ranges and templates, and if you're using the flanking rules and all that stuff, the big battles I totally get wanting the tactical map. Whereas then you compare it to something like Fantasy Flight Star Wars, where ranges are literally near, far, very far, and there is no like measurements or anything in the game. So some are going to lean heavier. I prefer Theater of the Mind too. On to our next one from Brandon Verhalen. This technically says Savage Worlds, but I will also say or 5th edition. But favorite MMO that would make a great Savage World setting or D&D setting.
The Secret World.
Well, you took mine,
Well,
but that's because we play in the same genre, Andy.
right, exactly. Like that's a gimme for supernatural horror.
The thing, it's the Secret World, but I'm not a good enough writer or a smart enough GM to do a good Secret World game. Because like you got to do some elaborate freaking puzzles for it to be the secret world.
Right, exactly. Pokemon would be
Yeah.
the next thing that I know that there's like rules for it out there, and I think that could be fun, especially if you twist it to a little bit darker, and make it a bit more dangerous to be out in the wild, you know, just like it
That
would
could
be,
be that could be cool.
right?
Like an actual like Pokemon Safari Zone, and it's just like
Right,
straight up.
And then you have to get into the fact that like you have to eat Pokemon if you really want a burger.
right.
Sorry,
Yeah,
but
fair.
like, yeah, you gotta eat something.
Well, here's the thing: it's like I'm a vegetarian. Oh, so you only eat plant-based Pokemon or plant-type Pokemon? Like,
Exactly, like
Say
they're
their own
animals.
names.
yeah, they all know their name.
I think MMO. God,
Yeah,
man, let me go through my list. I don't have a list of just random MMOs. No, but the list
I
is
will
get on
also
Steam
say
and pray.
Star Wars Old Republic. No, because that's just saying a Star Wars game. That's a gimme. No, don't count it. No.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be a something that already has lore to it, right? Something that's very free range and very open, regardless of the lore. Um, because if something shows up on the lore tab, like if it's continuously updating as an MMO, and it's like, you know, World of Warcraft or something like that, like, oh, the Lich King is no longer a thing, like, you know, some lady just came in and just wrecked the crap out of him, which by the way, I saw that last trailer, it's good. I mean, World of Warcraft is a great one,
There
like
is a
10 out
World
of
of
10.
Warcraft tabletop game.
Yeah, like
It
that's a
uses the
great one.
3.5 rules.
League of Legends, if you've ever played that MOBA, that's another good one as well. There's a lot of lore to follow up on it. To be honest, using an MMO in general for a tabletop game is half of your work is already done.
Yeah.
There's the lore. Have fun. Like, you know, the mechanics are generally there.
Yeah.
It just takes a good like DM to be like, yeah, I know the lore of that game.
Final Fantasy would be awesome.
Oh yeah, Final Fantasy 7, 10 out of 10. Like, but that's not an MMO.
But there is a Final Fantasy MMO.
Yeah, Final Fantasy
Yeah.
MMO. Like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I was
you
gonna
could
say,
totally run it.
I think that falls under the Star Wars of like the let's take a property and then make an MMO is like that's because it's a good property. How great was the MMO side of it? So next question from Mark Soon. How would you handle leading a group of PCs into an ambush situation in a fair manner where the PCs are actually surprised?
Give them a chance. And if it's really like a flip of a coin, right? Give them a chance to see if they can bypass the ambush. If you are, as the DM, absolutely just, I really want to wreck their you know, mess in, then it's like, okay, fine, they really don't really have a choice, but make it seem fair to them. A good example of that would have been 2 sessions ago. I did have an ogre walk up to them in a you know, a hard hat, a, you know, safety, everything, make him look like he was he worked for the subway company. And he walked up to them and said, what are you doing here? Do you have the paperwork? And they were like, yeah, we're police. And he was like, all right, let me talk to my boss or I'll lose my job, right?
Yeah.
At any point in time during that time, they could have been like, I would like to roll an insight check or double check on this guy in the database or something like that. No one did that. And I was like, all right, well, since you didn't, because later down the line, one of my players was like, I had a sneaking suspicion about that guy. I'm like, oh, why didn't you play on it, right? I did give them the chance.
Yeah.
But the dude walked away, disappeared, went invisible, walked up to them because they actually listened to him saying, wait right there, and casted like a big AoE spell. Like, that's how I took care of my ambush sequence.
Yeah, well, the thing is, there's a lot of ways to do ambushes. You can do the goblins in the woods and stuff, but like, Jay, you were part of technically an ambush in the Wild West game last session.
Oh yeah.
That whole gas trap, that's an ambush. I could have just as easily had like guys show up. The logistics still work. And that was you guys taking a job from a guy you already hated, you already distrusted. But I threw enough information at you and everything was true except a little bit of it. But
yeah,
the
like
thing
you gave us a chance.
Yeah, the thing is I threw enough information. Hell, you guys even had the people where you were carrying their ambush was a backpack full of poison that aerosoled the poison. They carried that thing around for like 2 days and no one thought to open the backpack because
Yeah.
you guys were sufficiently distracted. You had enough other things going around, and it wasn't just distracted on the roll and they beat you on the check. You just have make sure they have enough things and give them something that's going to bite them in the ass that seems like a low priority, but worth enough to carry around or worth enough to go do. It's not, to them, it's not the main priority, either because they don't like the guy giving them the job, because they don't think it's that important, but important enough to go do. And what they consider the high priority, which is typically their own interests, their own personal goals and stuff like that, they're going to be busy doing all of that. And that stuff takes time. And while that's happening, the ambush sets up. But they're not looking for it because they're busy doing other things. But you already laid the seeds earlier, so it doesn't come out of nowhere. You just laid the seeds, let them get distracted, and then come back when the time is right.
Yeah, I love a good ambush sequence, honestly. And there are so many different ways you can play it where it's not entrapment.
Yeah.
It is like have them on their way to do something else. Find a lost chalice, for instance, or something, and have a group of people over here that's what they're doing and intercept them on the path.
Yeah.
Or have them walk themselves right into it knowingly. Like in this one game I was playing, the very traditional vampire tropes, can't come in unless they're invited in. They knew that there was a vampire that looked exactly like a human NPC, and I had that vampire come up to their door and act distressed, and they invited them in. And the moment they did that, they were like, "Oh no!" And I was like, "Yep." And they come.
Yeah. Play up psychology.
Yeah, like it's always fun. You can totally do that.
The example, the blackmail I did, or blackmail, the ambush I did was from a villain, again, the party hates, but I had well established him to be completely egotistical. And he was. He's a complete narcissist. He thinks little of everyone. And whether or not you guys realized it, Jay, that's part of the secret sauce for an ambush.
Yeah.
Because by him being completely egotistical, you don't think he's going to stab you in the back because he'll just stab you in the front because he doesn't think well enough of you to stab you in the back. That's something, when you ambush somebody, that's because you have to get the better of them. And he already thought he had the better of you. But the thing is in the ambush, I also had the backpack have a letter telling his rival, Sandy's character, our friend, how much of an idiot he was for falling for this ambush. So it wasn't the egotistical was a ruse. He still was. But by doing that, you guys didn't really think to look for, oh, would he double cross us? Because nothing, at least as far as you guys were looking, nothing looked like he would bother with it.
It's really all about setting up an ambush. Is for me, it's always going to be I'll give my players a chance to bypass.
Oh, definitely.
It. Yeah, and if they don't, run on their like gut feels after that, um, you know, today you've learned. Today, you've learned. Don't let it happen next time because next time it may be a bit harder. I like to do the whole typical Mega Man sequence where it's like, here's a tutorial, jump through this, crawl up this, and do that, and like you know what to do. Awesome.
Yeah.
Let me kill you now.
Yeah, I think the big one too is there's tons of types of ambushes, but there's two main types of ambushes. There's the goblins or bandits on the road ambush where they're waiting and where you're going is automatically going through and they're waiting for you knowing you're coming. If you do that one, you need to give them signs that things are coming. Or what I tend to do is those kind of people, they're scavengers, they're predators. they're not looking to kill you because they might lose some of their people. They'll either stop you and trying to extort you, or they'll steal from you and get away before you can retaliate. They're not just going to ambush and attack and kill you. The ones who do that are the second type of ambush, which is a trap. Someone is trying to get you to come to a location because they have already decided you are who they want. And in that situation, they have to get you to get to that location. And just by that, all the setups, all the ways that they would try to get you to that location are ways for you to get out of it. Because in those, you're not automatically going there. If you go, well, then you go because someone told you to, yeah, you're being a dick. But anytime where it's like, you're given a chance, do you want to go there? They've decided. And once they've decided to go there, they walked into a trap. This one might be fun. I need the name for a magic dagger from an assassin's guild. It has a blade of smoke that appears from the hilt when the command word is said.
Smokey McSmokeface. I'm sorry. That's always the internet's default name for anything. Just put the name, put
Smokey
something
McSmokeface.
Face. Magic dagger with the smoke coming out of the hilt after a command word.
Yes.
It
has basically it's just a hilt. You say it, from what I'm reading, it's just a hilt. You say a command word and it makes a blade out of smoke.
Oh, a blade out of smoke?
Yeah. Yeah. A blade of smoke. So the blade is the smoke. Which, like, I'm not original. I'd call it like Shadow Blade. Like, I just make it simple. If it's like a relic or something with like a very specific name, I'd then also probably be giving it a personality or a few more unique things. This is still unique and cool, but this is very utilitarian. This is a tool. So I would just call it like a Shadow Blade.
Yeah, or I would call it a soot blade or a...
I like a soot blade because then it like assumes there's physical particles in the smoke, which
right. Like...
Also, if it's a hilt, you are way underusing that magic. Put that shit in a gauntlet. So it's like the Assassin's Creed blade, but out of shadow. Because, yeah. It's not like you have to worry about folding anywhere because you got magic.
What would I call it after that? Like, I like to, if I'm making magic items, I like to kind of like bounce off of old magic items. It sounds like Flame Tongue, which is a D&D thing, which is basically D&D's things of like that. If I had a choice, I would call it like Shade.
I would say it's actually more like the Sunblade than Flame Tongue. Because Flame Tongue's a physical sword wrapped blade. Sunblade's just a fucking light.
Sunblade, yeah. So like, yeah, maybe like the Shade Blade or something like that. It's simple. Nightblade, yeah, there you go. Or
Esper Blade.
Oh, that's good.
There we go.
Or, you know, I like to throw in like a little bit of Latin here to like my names when I name stuff and everything like that. So like Nox something, like the Nox.
Oh yeah.
Like it's great if you sit down and you build a magic item.
The Nox Incinerus or something.
Oh yeah, that's great. Or yeah, like you kind of want to build a little bit of lore.
With Nox Incinerus, I would make that like it would still be a blade out of shadow and stuff, but wherever it stabs would like curse the wound with like ash and ember.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Just like that'd be so cool.
Like it'd be more like a horrible burn.
Which actually reminds me of one. Now that you're understanding the horror that is Natural Healing in Savage Worlds, Jay, the horror companion has a cursed blade. It's something I think the serial killer stat has. It has one very simple mechanic to it. Mm-hmm. All wounds dealt from this blade can only be healed naturally.
Mm-hmm. And wow. Yeah, but what wow. One of the things I tend to I'm gonna die. One of the things I really like to do when it comes to making magic items, and is this from a Squeal's guide of magic weapons. It's an you know, obviously on what is it called? The DM thing where people homebrew stuff.
DM's Guild.
DM's Guild. I like having backstory to my magic weapons that I actually will homebrew for my characters. One of my favorite ones is it's an axe. It's a log cutter's axe, which essentially like it was created because a guy like left for war, but he was like a lumberman, whatever you want to call them. And like he comes back and his wife is already dead, and so he carves out this axe out of the tree that they used to carve their name into, and it breaks my heart. And I love having situations like that where like it's great, it's a magic weapon, use it, stab some
Yeah.
dude, right? But like but do you know where it came from, and like who made what? And that's always a great like little thing to throw at your players.
Okay. This says my slight tangent. I need to send you this because this is for 5e, because I do have one 5e game a month, because I'm also a paid GM and someone wants me to run 5e for them. It is a PDF of a book called Ancestral Weapons, which is an entire system about, rather than constantly giving people weapons, it's a system for upgrading and evolving the weapons as they gain levels.
Oh yeah. I actually
I love that method.
oh
of
yeah,
gaming.
when like the weapons like level up with you, and it's always great.
Yeah, it's a whole point build system.
That gives
and
me an
stuff.
idea too. What if you did a game that was like Death Eater, where the weapon was a player character as well, and they leveled up together?
Oh,
Nice.
those are nice.
Yeah, give them an NPC mentality or
Yeah.
personality.
A
That's the word.
sentient weapon,
Yeah.
like
The one I'm doing is basically this player wants me to run the most stereotypical D&D game possible. Like, I am giving him the uber D&D game, like as tropey as it gets. So what we did was I basically gave him and his party the weapons from the D&D cartoon. Not the specific weapons they have, but the concept of they have the hero's weapons. And they're now the heroes because they have those weapons.
We go to the bar, and I must speak with the male wench.
All right. The next one is going to raise so many red flags for you guys. So, and I know what the obvious answer is, but I figured we might as well have one of these in. I have a group that refuse to interact with each other. I get 0 conversations between them. I have 2 emo rogues, a batshit crazy warforged, a tiefling sorcerer, and a changeling warcaster. They are now level 4. Any ideas how I can fix this?
Backstory.
Well, not just that. Here's the thing. First, talk to them. Nothing in here says you talk to them. Second, if the entire party wants in like all combat and tactics game, and you want an RP game, you're not the right GM for the group. Yeah. That's an okay group. I know those groups. They need a war game GM.
Oh yeah, those are fun. I have to agree with that. Like, if you got walking stat sheets and that's a problem with you, it's time to sit down with your players and go.
First, talk to them, because maybe they're willing to. But if they're like, we have no interest, and the whole group is that way, you guys just want different games.
There's a Westmarch server for that on Discord. I'm sorry, I'm always gonna bring that. If you really want combat, go look for one on Discord. There's plenty of them there. But if you're sorry, but I'm always at heart going to be a roleplay GM. It's just give me that, like, torn to sunder, like, paladin, a bard who doesn't actually want to seduce, like he's tired of the trope, or a bard necromancer who wants to put the romance in necromancy, like shit like that. Like, I love that crap.
I think the thing is, at least from my stand on it, is that I agree I'm that kind of GM, but I also know I'm not the only kind of GM. And they just, like, I would not be a good GM for your group. I know some who would, and I wouldn't want to play in their games. It's just, again, role-playing is a huge swath for tabletop role-playing of what makes a good game, and there's not a right or wrong. Now, granted, I'm seeing a big red flag here of like they're not doing da 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 da, but I didn't see any actual toxic behavior, at least in the complaint. They're just not role playing, and you want them to role play.
Yeah, and also you could find interesting ways to force them to communicate with each other, put them in situations where maybe they're all trapped in an individual room and the way out is partially hidden in each one of the rooms. And so
Yeah.
the only way they can get out is to talk to each other and maybe pass things through tiny holes in the wall. Like, I
Well,
mean, you can get creative with
this one's 5e and they're level 4. I got a real easy way to get them to RP. Granted, again, they might hate it, so talk to them, but throw a vampire lord at them. There is no way they're going to beat a vampire lord. But a vampire lord's not going to be interested in just killing them. He's going to be interested in talking to them.
yeah, that kind of thing. You need to be upfront about what you're looking for and your initial like advertisement or game pitch that you give them. Like, if you weren't, and that's implying that you were not at the start. And then if you already made that clear that you're looking to run a game that has a lot of like PC interactions with each other and a lot of emotion and heart behind it, then I mean, yeah, you just say, look, like this is not the game that I was hoping to run. I think that you would be better suited with a GM that is more combat savvy or focused, or something like that. A bit more rules crunchy if that's what you're going for. But I don't. The game should be fun for both parties, both the GM and the players. And if you're not having fun and you're 4 levels in and there's like it's like a dead table, like I don't think that's very fun. It's not offering a lot of investment. Like, great, you want to play the cool antisocial character, but you're also still sitting around a table or a virtual table with a group of people. Like, did you think you were signing up to play a game with imaginary people? Like,
Yeah.
I don't. So there's a little bit of fault on everyone's part
Yeah.
there, I feel like, and if it's just not working, say it.
There could be a possibility that the group is just like their group of friends, right?
Yeah.
So like if that's the situation, then obviously like yeah, communication's 10 out of 10, everything that you need to do in a good DM to like player relationship, being able to sit down and talk with your players like, hey, I don't do this, I don't do that. Like I don't like, for an example for me, I will not role play out a torture session. I'm sorry, but I've seen it go completely left-sided. I've learned things I shouldn't have learned. And sometimes there's like goofy ones where they're like, oh, I would like to tie the guy's hands together and like lean back his chair and put a fireplace underneath him. Like that shit's like kooky as hell. Just sit down and talk to your players, or like if they're your friends and you don't want to disappoint them, but this is hurting you, there's no point in doing that. But you can always, if you have 2 edgelords, that's great, put them against each other. Like this is your world, you're the puppet master.
Have them team up. Edgelord brothers become a real fun part of a party.
Yeah, or put them against each other. I'm just kidding. Yeah, like make it a rivalry. Like there's obviously what was the breakdown of the group again? I think like 2 edgelords and then
2 emo rogues, edgelords, batshit crazy warforged, sorry, a tiefling sorcerer and a changeling warcaster.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds like they have a chaotic group right there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I feel like they should just, you have to own that with them and start pitching to their darker instincts too.
If the hero's journey and hero carrots aren't doing, I think Jay had it, but not on having the players do it. Give them rivals. Give them another party that's currently
give them an
better
NPC
than them.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
give them an
yeah.
NPC to hate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shit's good. Like, give them an NPC to hate, or even like have it to where like there's a you can have the players compete against each other. Or one of my favorite things to do is like there's this one magic item, right? And obviously it's tailored to like three of them. But like the one dude who finds it is that typical sneaky rogue. Like that obviously will break your players apart if you don't play it right. That's a little like odd and everything like that.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's
some high
always
level DMing because you're playing with fire right there. You just threw a book of
yeah.
matches.
Yeah, like and or one of my favorite ones to do is like throw a single love interest and like have one of your players go, "Oh, I'm interested in you," but then someone else is interested in that person. Make a love triangle if you really want to throw it at it. But the best thing to do, especially as human beings in general, to have a single goal or one enemy that you really hate. That's a good one. Like
It
throw an NPC.
unifies the group.
Right.
Yeah,
Any unifying event like that, honestly.
yeah.
Anything that
Here,
can bring them
if you
together
worry
and
about it, I will note one thing. While they have a sorcerer, I did not see a monk or a druid on there. Have
Mhm.
someone steal their shit,
Mhm.
or even like steal one thing from each of them.
Yeah, and use it against them, like a way to spy on them. Like having a group, I- a group enemy is going to unify the group significantly, especially if work it out over a couple of sessions. Get a little jab in on each of your PCs by this one NPC, whether it's a
Yeah,
big bad, whether they're behind the screen, just enough to piss each one of them off just a little bit, and
yeah,
then do the reveal, and then they'll be like, ah, we hate this guy, or
Like that weird
whatever.
yeah.
southern guy that from your Wild West game. I got it. I got vibes of like this guy's cocky, this guy's a little off or anything like that, and this guy's really, really messed up towards like one particular group of NPCs that are there. And I'm like, and all of a sudden when I was like, all right, I hate him, but I don't hate him enough. And then you threw this thing, and I'm like, I need to murder this guy. I need to break my foot off in this guy's ass. Like that's how angry I got. It's yeah. Use one of my favorite things is don't just throw out evil hobgoblin or evil blah blah blah. Make it an intelligent
Oh
guy.
yeah.
Make him
Give them
make
someone
him
who can outsmart them.
yeah, make him like a fucking godlike chess player that literally just like not you hate like okay, who do you hate? Who would you hate more? A Chad football player that's just walking around being like, "Hey, what's up, nerd?" Or would you like that? Would you hate a smart Alec kind of like, you know, kid or something like that that manipulates like half the school to vote him to be like class president or some shit? Like the Chad, cool. You can deal with him really simply, like play a prank, right? But the class president guy, you want that
Yeah.
super hyper intelligent guy that like just ruins your day.
All right. So, next question. What are some unique non-treasure rewards you have given to players, such as temporary hit points, temporary AC, etc.?
One of the ones is that if any of my players are watching right now, none of you guys are allowed to abuse this because I will eventually give it to you. If I like a particular player and the way they play their character very, very well, and I've done this one time and one time only, I outright straight up kill you because you did something amazing, right? You were sacrificing yourself for the group, for the greater whole, or some shit like that. The hollow one, it's a boon of some sorts. You come back as an undead, and essentially, you can never be resurrected anymore afterwards, right? It's a thing that I would like to give to my players if I enjoy their character the way they role play very well. Another fun thing that I like to give to my players is information.
Mm-hmm.
Information can be treated like loot. It's like magic items, great, gold, awesome, but information, that's how you win the game.
Yeah, information, powers. Most of mine, I don't write ahead of time. I just give something based on their actions. I mean, Andy's character from that ETU game we keep talking about is a perfect example of this. He started hosting a god in him. I mean, it turned out to be basically Satan, But hey, it gave you lightning powers.
That's cool. Yeah, I keep referencing this. It's a World of Darkness game that I'm running. I gave one of my characters, a female, a necklace that had like 6 gems on it, and each gem was a cost story wise, basically. But when that price was paid, it granted her a merit of her choosing. It could be supernatural, it could be like from any of the supernatural like splat books, or and it didn't have to tie into the lore or anything. We would make a unique reason why she could do this, and basically each one of those gems represented a piece of her soul. So at a certain cost, she's willing to save her friends, but part of herself is disappearing and this
Yep.
influence is taking hold of her. And so I love doing things like that. Like if you're going to introduce a merit or something, then make it personal. Like really link it to the person in a unique way.
Yeah. I love them having costs. I mean,
Yeah, right.
your god powers, you created more than enough costs for me, but let's just kill a bunch of men in black and hope nothing happens.
Or give them a house. Fuck
Yeah.
it. That's a good one. Give them a
Give them
house.
property. Give them responsibilities. Especially if you're playing like a D&D type game. Give them land, and there's people in that land.
Pets.
That's just ripe for more adventure.
Pets are great too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Zimmy.
Make them be aware of, like, when they go deep diving into the water, is, little, nibbles over here gonna drown. Like, it's always great to have pets to be thrown around.
All right. We have about 6 or 7 more questions. Hopefully. Oh no. Oh. I almost hit the intro again. I stopped it. Okay, so I skipped over one because this next question perfectly bleeds into the last. How do you get your players to stop metagaming? Mine openly discuss combat tactics and such out of turn and get mad at me when I tell them to stop. It's
Punish them.
annoying AF. Well, I think it also goes back to the last question of if the entire table wants to do that, and that is a type of playing, especially for D&D, and this is a hashtag D&D one. It may just not be a right fit, but especially since it sounds like you've tried to talk to them and they get mad, but it sounds like are you just like yelling at them at the table when they do that, or have you sat down and talked with them? If you've sat down and talked with them and that's not the game the entire rest of the table wants, well, that's the game they want, and you just want a different game than they do.
I generally kind of like set up rules beforehand before I started
Mm-hmm.
the game. And the thing about like being a DM in general is make sure you tell your players flat out, these are the rules. You get, like, if my players want to convey in the middle of combat any information whatsoever, you get 1 sentence or at least 6 seconds, right? Give or take.
Yeah.
If you can do that within that amount of time, great. But you can either do it on your turn or you blow a reaction.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like
You
that.
blow a reaction on my game if you want to, like, out of turn go, hey, watch out for the blah blah blah, or like,
Yeah.
this dude does this. Another thing regarding to metagaming is if they know how the monsters that they're fighting works, and if their character doesn't know that, homebrew the shit out of it. They don't
Yeah.
fucking need to know what's up.
I don't run monsters right from the book.
Yeah.
Have it for a long time.
I honestly love putting like an implied persistence to the problem at hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, while you guys are talking, they're getting closer. Or
Yeah.
like, okay, while you guys are figuring this out, this is happening. Like, just interjecting just a little bit. and it kind of spurs them into like, oh god, okay, we have to do something. Like, and that's always a fun way to handle it as well.
Another big one, unless they have telepathy, which in 5e it could be the case, but if they don't have telepathy, if they're yelling to each other, if they're fighting something that can understand them, those monsters are hearing their tactics. And they can adjust accordingly.
Right. I mean, take it like whatever they're saying, their characters are saying.
Yeah.
And so it's a problem. I'm like, well, you guys are plotting this course of action. Like, the world does not stop moving.
I'm saying typically with that, there is one person who is taking lead and tends to be like the tactician of the group in a lot of those situations. If that becomes obvious, I'll have the enemies who realize that gang up on their tactician. And once he's down, it's like, no, you're unconscious. You can't help him.
I do this to avoid everything.
Mhm.
I feel like in general, how when players are like that, they have to give their like 2 cents, right?
Yeah.
So what I like to do is before a big boy engagement, I'll be like, all right, I gotta go to the bathroom. You have 5 minutes. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. Figure out however you want to figure on about it. I'm going to the bathroom in 5 minutes. When I come back, you guys better have everything that you need to do what you need to do. That's your tactic and everything like that. And then at the end of it, right, it's blow the rules. You speak out of turn, you blow a reaction.
Yep.
Homeboy is going to be able to walk in and walk out, to hit your character without an attack of opportunity, um, or all this stuff. And if it continues to go on, at that point in time, it stops being D&D and it starts becoming you are the guy running this game and they are the people ruining this game. Like there is a level of metagaming which should be allowed, but then there is a level of metagaming where people just take it too far.
Yep.
Like, oh, I know this, this monster has this, and this stat, and
that's
is
when
able
it
to do
gets
that.
real
At that
bad.
point, at that point in time, it's like, oh, I know this guy's weak to fire. I was like, how would your character know that? And if they give me a good reason, then I'll be like, all right, that's fine. Or roll me a history check or something like that, right?
And well, and that becomes the thing of what if that's you as the GM's narrative flair on the situation? Like, so I know that's what the monster manual says, but that's when it becomes rules lawyering a bit. And I don't like micromanaging. And if I say that this monster does it this way, like at some point you have to just accept that I'm the one there's a great shortage of GMs out there. And a ton of people who want to play but don't want a GM. And so at a certain point, you have to kind of be like, okay, but I am the one running the game. And even in every RPG rule book that you pick up, it says like the GM has the final say. Now, that doesn't mean you have the iron fist, but it's to help. You're the mediator. You choose what rules are in the game, and your players stay because they enjoy the game. It's not your job, and they should be respectful of that too. You know what I mean? Like, it's supposed to be fun for everyone. And micromanaging and telling someone, well, the rule book says it's this and this and this and this, and you're doing it this way. Well, yeah, because this monster does it this way. Like,
Yeah. Like you get a choice on how you want to like decimate them, but at the exact same time, you also get a choice on how you want to create great moments with them.
right.
On to the next one. I'm concerned that I'm not achieving my goals as a DM, and I'm not sure how to fix it. I've watched so many building videos, but when it comes down to a blank screen and me, I got nothing. Paralyzed, blocked. Creative types, how do you cope? I will say generators are your friends. Random generators are 100% your friend if you have writer's block. And you don't have to take them as gospel. Get them, get an inspiration, or if you don't, ditch it and do it again.
Are they running out of like ideas? Is what we're assuming?
Blocked. They're trying to do world building
Yeah.
and can't think of anything.
Um. One of the things that I generally do is if I run into a writer's block, is I will sit down with my players and throw out feelers, like I always say. This is the like you give them a situation, and if that situation you have no idea how to like move on and conclude or even like full circle it, you sit down with your players. Is like, what is your character's intentions after this? And that's kind of a good way to kind of somewhat start, because sometimes the character's intentions is like, oh, I want to go undercover, or I want to be able to infiltrate, or I want to be able to find this and this. And it's great because then at that point in time you just you know either give them a goal of what they wanted to achieve, and then follow through with it if they pass or fail, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how I do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Well, I
think
mean, this was game prep much more than at the table. But yeah, I mean, I think we actually really kind of touched on this much earlier in the stream of also like, don't have all of the world building and prep rely on just you. Talk to your players. Get your players to figure out parts of the world and things they want. First of all, it lets you know what they're interested in, and second of all, it's stuff you don't have to write, and it gives you anchors to start from. Because if your biggest problem is a starting spot, which again, a blank screen, have your players give you the starting spot.
right. I also think that if you find yourself at a dead end and you're staring at a blank canvas and you're finding yourself unable to find where to go next, pull from what you know. Pull from movies that might be obscure, but you love them. Pull from your favorite book that you read that no one's ever heard of. Or pull from something that people have heard of, but make it your own.
Here's another potential problem one. I have a longtime player who clearly is not having fun in our new campaign, but won't say what is wrong or what he would like. He's starting to be combative with other players or just silent. What do you do with that? Remind them that not every game is for every player. If it's a really bad fit, it sounds like you've already tried to talk to him. I've had, at least in my experience, I've had players who feel every game I ran was a game they had to be in because I was the GM, and not every game I want to run is for every one of my players.
Right. I mean, it just sounds like they need a break.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's nothing you're doing. Maybe they're just tired of the game in general. Um, Now, I also think that it could be a long time player who's acting out because maybe they've played in 4 of your games and not once have they ever felt like the spotlight shine on them just a little bit,
That is
which
possible.
is which is a total possibility, and you may oversee it, and maybe it was not such a big deal for the first 3 games because he really enjoyed the people he was playing with and he was all for letting them make the decisions. But maybe this character needs some limelight, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like he's tried talking to him because won't say what's wrong or what he'd like.
Right.
Which, I mean, at that point, the conversation also has to go both ways.
If,
Can't help somebody
Exactly.
if somebody won't accept help.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, if they're not talking to you, then, I mean, meh. Like, sorry. And you don't like it, I guess, but whatever it is not working out. Like, we're just
Yeah,
gonna be real with it.
yeah, like to if it's a problematic player at that point and you've already talked to them, it's kind of there's a point in time where you have to say adios, amigos. Um, but there's also the thing that I like to do. If you want to be a little bit more proactive rather than just like do this, do that, talk about it outside of game, I tend to build my encounters around where one person should be able to specialize in. and then after that specialization's over, it's on to the next character. Obviously, in my game, I have a shield, a dealer, a magic person, and someone who does like a lot of crowd control.
On the next one, because it is almost 10:30. What kinds of secrets does the DM keep? Does the DM ever share them with the players? I
Oh
am
man,
so bad about sharing information.
um, are we talking about like in campaign session, or are we talking about like? I would assume like it's throughout the time in campaign. Sure. Let me bring out like
Yeah.
three notes that I have
Like
out.
secrets, I mean, the truth. I mean, anytime you have an NPC that's lying, I know what the truth is. Especially if you're running a mystery game or any kind of detective type game. Like that's the whole point of the game.
Right. I
Oh
feel
yeah.
like it's a plot. Like
Yeah,
you don't want people to know the ending before you get there. So you
yeah.
always have to make sure you hide part of your hand.
Hmm.
Also, I love a good red herring.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I really, really do. Like deliberately throw them off track. And that's a lot of fun. So
yeah. The second part that does the DM ever show them with the players is actually specifically why I have confidants for basically all of my game that are people who aren't players in the game. Because I gotta tell people about and
Yeah.
like bounce ideas and stuff off of people. And I used to be really bad about like giving away secrets and stuff to my players. So you find somebody else that you're friends with that like is into gaming and stuff that just doesn't happens to not be playing in that game. So you can talk to them about like, hey, I got this idea, or hey, this is what I'm thinking the plot's gonna be.
Mhm. My thing is, I like to tell my players after it's already too late.
Oh yeah,
Um,
oh that's so
oh yeah,
fun.
that's great. It's always great to do that. For an example, I think they were in a hostage. Yeah, my players last game were in a hostage situation, and for some odd reason, there was one hostage that was just left out. Like the she wasn't left out, but she was like guarded by one person only, not like multiple people or anything like that.
Hmm.
And they were like, the typical man. I knew she was like something was going on with her and shit like that. Like she was there because they wanted her to get like free. They wanted to free her because she was supposed to be there to steal two things of artifacts, and she's gone now. Like y'all guys saw her as just a hostage, an innocent woman, no big deal or anything like that. But in reality, she's like the big baddie with the ideal behind it. Like,
Yeah,
and I definitely tell my players after it's just too late. Like, "Hey, here, let me read the notes of this session and be like, yeah, she just stole two artifacts and y'all got, and like I gave them hints left and right.
yeah,
Like it's great. um the big reveal is always a great thing to do. You don't like Andy said, don't show your hand, not yet, but
yeah.
show your hand whenever it makes the impact.
One of the things I've been working on is actually shifting those reveals to in game. Because then, like in your case, have other people, like maybe the next session, looking for those missing artifacts, and like this one person's wanted, and have someone recognize that it was the one hostage
Yeah.
that they thought was suspicious. I mean, that's the whole reason I gave Sandy that letter of I can't believe
Oh
you
yeah.
fell for this. Because that's 100% showing the hand, but then when you do it in game, either from a villain who's gloating or doing it as the actual hook in the adventure, that's one of those I'm still working on personally as like the improve yourself as a GM, but I'm finding that's a really great way to both show your hand and have it hit even harder because then the hand shown to the characters, not just the players.
right. And I'm a big fan of show, don't tell. Like if you are dropping this huge 15 minutes of exposition from one NPC or something, like stop yourself and be like, no, no, they're not going to tell them all of this. All of that information that you wanted to unload, break it into smaller increments, stretch it out. Because every time you're thinking of laying out this huge section of plot, you could often break it into one or two smaller scenarios that will last one or two games and stretch your plot line out that much further.
All right. So I'm skipping a few of these because I got thunderstorms outside. So I'm jumping over the ones that are kind of retread ground and stuff. But I'm currently doing a homebrew campaign and wanted to bring in new interesting items for players that perhaps people haven't quite seen. Any advice is greatly appreciated. So, what weird item can you think of?
I like to take stuff from actual media sometimes. That's always great. But if you want to talk about an item, we just struck on one, like the ancestral whatever you call it,
Yeah,
right?
ancestral weapons are ones I love because they get
Yeah.
to change over time.
Yeah, they grow over time over certain like limits and stuff. Another one, I like to give backstories to my weapons, right? Like think of it as if you're making an NPC. Like if you're bringing something really homebrewy, left side, left wing, you know, do the whole like Spider-Man's suit, right? A symbiotic, which by the way is in the an official book in D&D.
Oh yeah, I was in third at 3.5.
Oh yeah, 3.5. Yeah, like grab some stuff. Like sometimes my greatest magic weapons I give to players are always the sentient ones.
Oh
The,
yeah,
the ones
those
that like
sentient items are so much fun.
yeah.
One of my
Yeah.
favorite. Oh, sorry, Andy, you go.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah. I also, yeah, we've got magic items. We have got ideas galore there. If you're looking for something really interesting too, you could think a little bit outside of the box and go for an interesting location
Mm-hmm.
or something that is maybe like a moving location that pops up in existence randomly. Pull from You could also pull from like your traditional, I don't know, even what is the paranormal CCP or whatever. Um,
SCP.
SCP.
SCP, yeah.
You mean this?
Yes, find something from there or an urban legend and pull it into your world, like the man with the hook or the uh, house of glass or something like that that you could really work and plant in their world and write it.
God, take the man's hook and actually make it an item.
Mhm.
Right?
It's just like a
Yeah.
cursed item. No,
Yeah.
one that immediately popped in because I love doing things that aren't weapons. I do love the location idea because I have like the flying dwarven crystal city is one of my favorites
Yeah,
that I
right?
use a
Like,
lot because sky pirate dwarves are just fun. But an item I love that I've used actually there's two. One is technically a weapon, but one item I love is rather than doing like a bag of holding or something, you do kind of like a Liamon's tiny hut where it just opens
Mhm.
to an extra dimensional location, but it's a doorknob. And it only works once it's installed on a door, and then when you open that door, it leads to the location. But it has to stay installed on the door, and the door only leads there, which means it has to be on the outside of the door. Things like that. And then my other favorite is it's literally just like a really good magic sword, but it's not an intelligent weapon. The sword is haunted by a ghost of like the most atypical lawful good paladin that just constantly pesters whoever owns it to be a lawful good paladin.
You should kill that guy. You know, he seems like a good man with a good family.
Yeah, pretty much. So we got our final question. I tried to save these ones for last because they're the open ended ones. I'm looking for more ideas for goofy one shots. What are some of your favorite wacky settings or plots?
Okay. A group of Black Ops goblins named Gene Unit. That's it. Like,
Oh my god. I mean, I've already said mine in an earlier stream. Run a Power Rangers game where you're all the villains. Like Rita Repulsive, Lord Zed, Goldar. Like, that would be such a fun one shot. And hell, that could be run in D&D. All the villains
okay.
could easily be D&D classes.
I don't, so, and maybe it's just a personal preference thing. I don't often do slapstick, silly type of humorous games. If I was going to, I would probably pull from like Paranoia or something like that, a game like that that is where you could go really over the top with it. Like you're one of 12 clones and you open the door and boom, you explode. Okay, let's try that again. You know, like restart. Like,
That reminds me, one of my favorite Paranoia puzzles I ever gave someone was they were all level 1, so they were black tier, and they had to clean a toilet.
right? But it's not just any toilet.
Well, no, it's a normal white porcelain toilet. You can't come in contact with anything that's white at that tier.
Oh.
But I didn't have them break down the rules like that because it's Paranoia. They couldn't figure out what was going on.
That's so funny. Yeah, see, like but then again, that is the one and only like humor game that I'm even slightly familiar with. Like I just don't often do humor.
Yep.
I don't even like comedy movies most of the time.
Andy, every single one of my stream games has become a humor game. Let's be real honest about that.
Right.
All right.
If the viewer is listening, here's a good one. You give them deadly encounters. It doesn't matter what kind. But thing of poison, whatever you call it. Every single time someone dies, it Groundhog Days. There you go. It just Groundhog Days.
Yeah.
And then, throw dumb stuff like phylacteries of love left and right and shit like that. Make it like a jester, just playing a trick on them. That's always a great one.
I love a good Groundhog Day.
Oh my god. Take Tomb of Annihilation, but Tomb of Horrors, and make none of it lethal. Just annoying. Like, just make all of them practical jokes instead.
Trapdoor opens up. It's just rubber spikes.
Oh god, rubber spikes would actually be hilarious. As like a ball pit would be a good one. But do stuff like the gaping maw that's the Orb of Annihilation. It's just suspended black ink.
Right, and like inside is like the tunnel that constantly spins when you're trying to walk through it.
Yes. Oh my god. The Funhouse of Horrors. That may need to become a 5th edition module. I'm just gonna write that down. Sell it in next April. Could do it.
Tired of dying in your games, so run this. Tired of your players overthinking shit? Whoa, totally run this.
Oh yeah, make it where like everything seems super deadly, but overthinking it's the worst. The answer to everything's just Occam's razor. Just the simplest solution is always the right answer. The opening color puzzle is actually a number puzzle. The actual passcode's all 0. Flip has a great overthinking puzzle, and with that puzzle, we will be ending it. So Flip, post it. I will read it. And then we will be done with the AMA. Thanks everybody who stuck around through tech issues. I get to edit together 2 streams now.
Good luck.
Right, it works as a trap too. What do we got? Well, I put back my SCP official RPG because apparently that exists.
I know, and like that's something I know nothing about. I tried to watch the videos, and I was like, "This is some guy talking. It's weird. I don't know what's happening."
Basically, it's just
it's new level creepypasta.
Yeah, or really cute shit. Like
Yeah.
sometimes there's just really cute things. There's
Look up the Exploring series on YouTube, because a lot of the SCP ones are them just reading the SCPs, because SCPs are actual text documents. Exploring series isn't reading them. They have read them and then they explain them to you instead of reading them verbatim.
Gotcha. That I would be way more into. I'm like, okay, what is happening with this? Like, I'm not creeped out. I just feel like I'm reading someone's journal.
All right. So Flip's one is you put your players in a hallway that they can identify as oil using skills. Once they're in, the doors close and a torch starts lowering. They can try to jimmy the doors, break the torch mechanism, etc. The torch is magical fire. Touching it causes it to stick to whatever touches it. Hands, cloaks, whatever. Makes that object easier to spot, negatives the stealth. At lower levels, or if something gets really covered, like if they throw their cloaks over the torch, it imposes disadvantage. When the torch hits the oil, it turns off and the door opens. Oil on the floor, fire gives off no heat. It just makes stuff easier to spot. Yeah, this is like the guy who does the animated spellbook did the clock trap.
yeah, the clock one. I actually threw that in my my second game.
Yeah, where you have a room, everything locks, and there's a clock ticking down. As it ticks down, like it starts changing colors to more aggressive colors, and things start rumbling. And there's a button in the room. If you hit the button, the clock resets. The thing is if the clock hits 0, the doors unlock and open, and you're fine.
Oh. Those are always great. I put that in one of my dungeons.
All right.
All right. I guess that's the end of the stream.
Yep. With that, we will catch everybody. Well, I guess Jay on Friday with some Neogate New York, because I will not be streaming tomorrow. I have a baby shower to do. But Friday we'll have Jay. Saturday we will have an episode of Star Wars. Yay! And soon things will roll back. I will say a week from today we are also finishing up our Tales from 2000 Homecoming prequel. So that will be fun. All right, guys. We'll catch everybody later. Bye.
Bye.